Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Michelle Pope.
Good morning. You have joined Life is a Sacred Journey in the chaos of life. Today, things are not going as we had planned, but nonetheless, we are here. And our guest this morning is Susie, and I believe it's Boutal, and she's a qualified ADHD coach and declutter expert, helping busy women transform from procrastination to purpose to find their space to live. That's the name of her, the organization, her blog, A Space for Living, and it says, Find Your Space to Live. I wrote some things down because I resonate with Susie and some of her values. Again, welcome. Hit the share button. Also, if you could like us, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you are someone that keeps coming back to Life is a Sacred Journey, we just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are finding us in your life. And we try to bring people like Susie, who you're going to hear from in a few minutes. We like to bring people who can help you in your life. You know, as I always say I'm in this wonderful season of my life where I think I kind of got the game of life a little bit, but then something like this morning happens where YouTube and Facebook and everybody decided to not work properly, and I think to myself, "Ooh, maybe I don't have it down." But but we work to bring our best selves into the world every single morning. So as I told you, Susie Boutal, I hope that I'm pronouncing the last name properly. She can correct me. But Susie is one of those people who has these incredible values that I went to her website last night, and these words were in bubbles across her website. And these are like my mantra words: freedom, courage, belonging, integrity, and authenticity. Oh my gosh. So I was like so excited because I'm like, those are my mantra words. I have to meet another person who lives into these words. And sometimes I fall in areas, but other times I hit the mark, but they are mantra words for me. So I want to welcome and have you welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey, Susie Boutal, who is an ADHD, procrastination counselor, expert, and she also has a site called A Space for Living, and the tagline is Find Your Space to Live. I love that. I love that. So welcome, Susie, to Life is a Sacred Journey. I'm so excited to have you here this morning.
Thank
Yay!
you. Yeah, it's good to be here. And it's your morning, it's my afternoon. So I'm a bit closer to the weekend. But yeah, thank you for the intro. I love that you've been on the website and had a look. And yeah, like those words you were saying, they're my values. And it's lovely that that's aligning with you. And yeah, I guess we have things in common already. So
Well,
yeah,
and
thank you for having me.
yeah, well, Susie, my pleasure. Thank you for agreeing to come on Life is a Sacred Journey. But you know, those are the things that I think that when we think about a human race, regardless of our geography, our ethnicity, all of those kinds of things, there are certain values that resonate with, I mean, I'm hoping with the whole humanity, but there are people out there where, you know, I didn't know you before this morning, but yet you were living into a value system that is very similar to mine. And so when we think about, and you talked about feeling alone, you know, that sense of like, oh, overwhelmness and all of that. Let's start with your story first and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this purpose-driven life that you're in.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm based, you can probably tell from the accent, in the UK. Kind of, it's near Hampshire. Not sure how well you know it, but yeah, kind of
Yeah.
south in the UK. Um, I suppose I've always had a drive to just do my best and help people and just wanting to make things a bit better wherever I can.
Mhm.
Um, And I guess this particular journey started in 2015 when I was made redundant from my corporate job that I'd been in for 9 years. I'd had all three of my kids whilst in that employment. The youngest was about 3 months. So
Wow.
yeah, it was a tricky time. And I was trying to think creatively about what can I actually do that's going to make me some money while I've got these kids. And yeah, probably will need a full-time job at some point, but let's just be creative and think where my skills are, I suppose. So I started off as an eBay business, selling stuff for other people on
Okay.
eBay. Kind of grew and grew, and eventually I needed to bring in other people to help me. The waiting list was massive. It was really in demand. I did go back to work, full-time work. So I just needed a way to kind of manage that. So I started working with some other people that needed home-based work and that they could kind of pick up and put down around their kids and their families and things. So it was just a lovely thing to be able to do. One of my customers suggested I go into people's homes to help them declutter and find the things that they're going to sell. So yeah, I started doing that. That was kind of evenings and weekends. Really enjoyed that. And then in 2019, I did a coaching qualification, which kind of supercharged what I could offer because it was no longer just the stuff on the floor. It
Mm-hmm.
was kind of the emotional and mental side of things as well. Then we had the lovely pandemic. I had to take everything virtually. The eBay stuff carried on. People could leave things at the door. We could work out a kind of safe way to do it. But in terms of going into homes, that was just not possible. So that's what I put together, a kind of virtual holistic program, if you like. So kind of being able to use my coaching skills, my declutter knowledge, and yeah, I guess with the experience, learning that it is just not just about the physical stuff. It's kind of everything. So yeah, it's kind of a holistic three-pronged approach, if you like, kind of physical, mental, and emotional decluttering. And as you said at the beginning, like to help people find their space to live, whatever that means. So brief history of of how I got to here.
Well, I love that story because so many of us, my children are adults now, but, at the time when they were younger, trying to figure out how to make sure I keep income, but also have enough time to be present at track meets and basketball games and all of those things. And that is, many women, I know there's dads out there that do that too, but many women have experienced that through the ages where it's sort of like, how do I manage? And now that we understand that even stay-at-home moms are just working hard to navigate all these things, and a lot of times things fall. I always look at it like the three-ring circus and the person with the balls that are going up in the air, the juggler, and you're just like moving around trying to get, or the plates, you're trying to keep them spinning all the time so not one plate falls off. But we find that that is almost humanly impossible unless we have a space of organization and first organizing those emotions within ourselves, which is a part of some of the stuff that you coach people about as well. Will you take us through that kind of conversation a little bit? Because I know I have felt that sometimes where it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that. And it's right there in my appointment book or on my phone, but I forgot it. I completely forgot it because I'm running, trying to, please this person, do this, all of that. And it makes you look scattered. It makes you look as if you are unable to manage your life. So talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you feel flaky, don't you? You feel
Yeah.
like everything is failing and it's just like a house of cards that just starts to collapse. And I liked what you said about the juggling, because that's probably part of what we talk about is identifying your kind of glass juggling balls as opposed to maybe the plastic ones. So maybe the glass ones is your health, your kids' health, the real
Yeah.
important stuff, and actually realizing that some of the other things probably plastic balls. You know, if you miss somebody's dinner, I mean, yeah, it's a pain. It's annoying. You feel bad, but it's not gonna make or break, perhaps.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I guess the process is beginning with the end sometimes. So thinking about what would you actually like your life to be? Because often, as you say, you know, describing that juggling, plate spinning, crazy life, kids, work, house, friends, so many commitments that you don't often take that step and think, oh, actually, first of all, believing that something could be different, and then believing, okay, if it could be different, how would I really like, without thinking about the obstacles and the how, and oh, but I can't afford that, or I haven't got time, or all of those things that we put in our way, but just having a moment to think about, ideally, where would I be with things? So that's important. Um, Something else that we work through very early on is, I'm not sure whether you or listeners are aware of the kind of wheel of life exercise.
Oh, okay. Tell them about it, because I
Yeah.
am, but yeah.
Yeah, so basically you just draw a circle with 8 segments, and in each segment you write an important part of your life. So it could be work, family, spirituality, community, things like that, kind of the headlines. And then you rate each section to see how satisfied you are. The way I work with this wheel is on the wheel of clutter. So we write down the things that are causing us the clutter problem. So it could be something physical like clothes, kids' stuff, kitchen, all of those types. But it could also be feelings or thoughts such as overwhelm, anxiety, not feeling good enough, imposter syndrome, all of the different things. So I encourage people to have a spread of physical and kind of mental in
Mhm,
that wheel. We
mhm.
work out where they are with things. So it could be really overwhelming and terrible. Maybe it's a 10. Maybe on reflection, it's not too bad. Then we talk about the impact that it's having, because maybe you feel like clothes are taking over your life, but actually taking that step back, maybe having too many clothes all over the place isn't my priority right now. Whereas because
Mm,
it's physical, you see it all the time, but
mm.
actually maybe worse for you right now is an anxiety about something. So we kind of get into those details. We find a priority, a starting place, because I always say you can do anything, but maybe not everything all at
Right,
once.
right,
So
right.
kind of finding that priority place, what's going to have the biggest impact first of all, and then say they've rated it like a 9. I might ask them, okay, so if that was to come down to a 7, what would need to change? And then we can find some smaller chunks of task or activity or changes, I suppose, that they might like. So yeah, it's a process, but starting with that kind of big picture of, okay, let's just dream a little, where are you going to be? What are you going to be doing? Who's in your life? Who's not in your life? Like,
I love that because, a good friend of mine said to me many, many years ago that she felt that I was thriving on neglect. And
oh,
I'll never forget that statement. I've used it now in my life many, many times. And it was because I was beginning to have sciatic problems and they just came out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere, I was having back pain and, I was a runner. There was no reason I was physically taking care of myself, I thought. And when she said that to me, I said, oh my gosh, maybe I am thriving on neglect. And I started doing, I didn't do the life wheel because I didn't know about it at that time, but I started jotting down. I had a thing that said me, and then a column that said me, and a column that said other. And I started jotting down every day what I had done for myself, and then other.
mm,
Every single day, the other list was almost 2 times longer than the me list. Then the me list came down to simple things like brushing my teeth, washing my face, putting moisturizer on. I mean, it wasn't anything fun like doing tie dye or any of those kinds of things. And I have to tell you, I broke down and I really broke down and started crying at the end of the month. I gave myself 30 days to look at it. And I have that journal still to remind me that the me has to be loved and cared for before we can take our tentacles of purpose out into the world. And so I looked at my life at that point, Susie, and I thought cluttering was sort of my way of being in control. Is cluttering sometimes used as a control mechanism? Because I would take my clothes off and just throw them on the chair. It was my control. And I felt like, okay, I know where they are, until this pile, I couldn't even see the chair after a while. And
Yeah.
so talk about that, because I think
Yeah.
that those two things do kind of come together. I may be wrong.
Yeah, there's always a reason for behavior, even when it's not necessarily your ideal. So, throwing the clothes on the chair, you might think to yourself, oh, I wish I could either, put them away, put them in the wash, like put them somewhere that's not messy.
Yeah.
But actually the need is that you're satisfied. So, even with things like procrastination, perhaps we're protecting ourselves from achieving. Perhaps we're protecting ourselves from doing something that we might fail at. So it's kind of always looking behind the behavior into the why, because if it's something that's not helping you directly, yeah, have a look at that, I guess. And yeah, I suppose with some aspects of clutter, especially the physical side, there is something, or some certain people prefer to be able to see things. So if you can't see things, you kind of that out of sight, out of mind. There's a lot of kind of neurodiversity, I suppose, that needs to have things in their vision to remember they have them or remember where they are. So clutter kind of serves that purpose, that you're not going to forget. The other thing about it is the kind of scarcity abundance mindset.
Yes.
So if we have too little around us, or too little thoughts, too little stuff, our brains kind of feel like everything's going, oh, I have to hold on to things, or I'm going to be destitute, or I'm going to lose everything. It's hard to let go because you don't know what's coming in its place. It may be something better, it may be fear, or everything may go. So yeah, there's definitely kind of self-preservation around clutter for sure.
Yeah, and that whole idea, like you just said, of fear of letting go, where I even know some of we caregivers, we work with caregivers here, and sometimes reminding them that they have to let go of the person that their loved one was. If they have Alzheimer's, dementia, they do all, or even the physicality of that person, and to take time to get to know the new person. And that's why where the idea of courage for me comes in, where you have to have that courage to let that person go, because they're leaving anyway through this disease process. But then there's an ability to embrace the new individual that if you don't let go, you will never see. You will never have those moments. And sometimes we hold so tight. I mean, as a mom, I remember as my kids started growing and leaving, and I kept thinking, oh, I still want to parent them. I still want to give advice. And I had to let that go in order for them to feel that they were living into their adulthood with the tools that I had already given them. They didn't need me to give them those tools again. They already had them. But there was a piece of me that was like, no, 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 you need me, you need me. And letting go created space for a new relationship that is adult. It's an adult
Yeah,
relationship. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
still need you, just in a different way. And
Yeah.
as you say, it's like if you let go of doing the kind of baby child things, you can give yourself to them in a new way, which is what they need right now. But it's a grief type of process sometimes, we have to grieve it.
Yes, yes. And then in that grief process, you go through those stages. We typically talk about the 7 stages of grief, right? You know that we go through them, but you can jump around and back and forth, and you have to give yourself permission to do that. Why is it so hard for us to give permission for our emotional intelligence to do what it needs to do to help us navigate our lives? Why is that so hard?
I mean, I think it's to do with the brain always wanting to protect us. And
Ah,
anything that seems difficult or something we've experienced before that we want to subconsciously avoid because it was painful, I think we're trying to keep ourselves safe and on kind of on a, what's when they call the level? It's homeostasis kind of,
okay. Yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes,
equilibrium kind of
yeah,
feeling.
yeah.
Um, so I think anything that comes along that feels like it has the potential to upset things or not know how to navigate, or perhaps we've navigated before and it was painful. I think we're always going to try and keep ourselves away. Sometimes we need to jump into the tears and the grief and, let that move through us
Yeah.
somehow. But
Yes, because there's healing in crying. I found out not so long ago that the healing in that is that you can release, and then you breathe. You do breathe differently when you're crying, and so all of that whole kind of thing. I don't want everybody to walk around crying. I don't want you to feel sad, but you can also cry for joy. Yesterday, I was with my granddaughter, and she's very young, and she kept calling my the name that I've given, that we've taught her to call me, and it just made me cry, and those were tears of joy, but I let them happen. And it was so interesting when she saw me crying, she came over, and because she knows she's cried, but she's not seen anyone else cry before, and she came over and she touched them, and we started talking. I started talking. I said to her, this is Nini's tears. I said, but I want you to know Nini's very, very happy, and because you're calling me to help you, and we moved on. Of course we moved on, but those tears of joy and happiness, that I want her to see the full spectrum of myself, and not be hidden and act as if it's like, oh, let me get rid of these because
mm.
I don't want. So we do that too, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not shameful, it's a beautiful part of being human. And I think we do release some hormones, don't we? I think when you cry, when you laugh, when you hug, like, and that's what's good for us. And I often talk to people, we spend a lot of time working on our to-do lists, but I do encourage people to have a to-feel list.
Oh, I
Like,
love that.
yeah, so like in the moment, sometimes if you are with children or at work or somewhere where you need to try and kind of hold yourself together a bit, we don't always get to kind of go with our feelings in the moment. So I like to keep a list about things that I want to come back to and feel a bit more. So yeah, I think it just balances out how our, well, I suppose we're all kind of maybe diverse cultures and things, but it's that, we're very focused on productivity and doing things and thinking. I don't know if that's kind of like a modern
Oh my
thing, but
gosh.
it's like, yeah, getting back to feeling again is hard for people.
Yes. I want to make sure that I ask you also about ADHD, because that's something that you've spent a lot of time studying and focusing in on in your living into your purpose. Um, do you think there's a lot of us that are adults now that, because ADHD was not a diagnosis or things that people spoke about, are we living with that in our lives, and it's manifesting itself in procrastination, cluttering, and some of these other things that we've been speaking about?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think there's something like, I don't think it was recognized in adults till like the 2000s or something.
Right, yeah.
And then when most of us adults were children, it was seen as something that only boys could have. It was very rare to be considered. So yeah, I think there's a lot of women kind of walking around feeling like they're broken, hormonal, difficult, even kind of misdiagnosed with depression and anxiety and just generally struggling with things. And I mean, everything has its cause, and sometimes it's not the cause that is important. But I think when it's something that can't just be explained away by simple ways or just medicated, I think it's worth sometimes knowing why, because it can give you that validation and self-compassion to be able to say, look, it isn't actually my fault. I can't solve this by trying harder, working harder, isolating myself and trying, because that's the not the right kind of course of action. So I think, yeah, I think there's probably quite a few, a lot higher percentages, I think, than we would know.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just important to see people as individuals
Yes.
and have compassion for yourself. Kind of
Yes.
be motivated by positive feelings, like you want to do something, it gives you joy, you want to look after yourself and you want to succeed, not doing things because you feel ashamed or guilty or not good enough, because it might spark you into action to clean your house if someone's coming. But
Right. I
as a
know, right?
long-term strategy, it's just not healthy, I don't think.
Yeah, and it's not healthy for us to be in comparison of the other person, you know. It's something that our world has really fostered in social media, to compare one to this, to that. But we are unique beings. I mean, you and I may have the same value mantra words and the same living into those values, but how we do it may be very different. But that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong. It just is. And I think we're in this cause and effect life that it's right, it's wrong, it's you're wrong, I'm right, this kind of thing. And does that also, I think, increase our anxiety in just living life on a day-to-day basis and living in the wonder of it?
I think so, yeah. I think people spend too much time kind of checking themselves, thinking, oh, is this acceptable? And they kind of get away from their core. Where I
Yeah.
think if they sat with themselves and thought, does this feel good? Is this really something I'm invested in and want to be? Is this part of my identity? And does it make me a better, I don't know, mother, woman, father, person, whatever? I think people are too far away from that these days, which is sad. They kind of rely a lot more on that social kind of peer pressure, kind of social acceptance, which it's nice to feel like you belong, but you kind of want to belong with the people that you are already kind of a heart with. I don't know
Yeah.
how else to say it, but yeah, we get too
Well,
far
because
removed.
exactly, well, because we formulate our own village as we live in the different phases of our lives, and so those people are a part of our village because they already accept us for who we are. And so it's to me, those are the places where we want. That's where you bring your authenticity, your all of those things, and you lean into that. But from time to time, like I'm getting older, yay. And ageism is very much a part of our construct. So people will say things to me and they mean them as a compliment, but like somebody said, "Oh, you look good for your age." I'm going to use that as an example. And I thought, so I didn't look good before. I get it. I get what people are saying, and thank you for the compliment. But it also means that, okay, so when things change a little bit, will I still not look good? Will I still not be the person that I am for you today? So, and we do it to little people. We say, "Oh, they're not old enough to understand." Well, yeah, they are, kinda. Having raised children and now watching my granddaughter, she understands a lot, even though she doesn't have the words to express what she feels. She uses sign language to express how she feels because they've taught her that. But but she knows what's going on. She has a feeling of what's going on. So how do we navigate those feelings? I mean, as a coach, I'm sure many people come to you with that sort of paradigm, like, oh my gosh, how do I live into this new me? I'm 67 years old, and yes, I'm fantastically wonderful, but I want people just to accept me for this moment, this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Not just because of the categories they decide
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
ascribe to you. But yeah, I was talking to a client the other day and we were talking about something similar. And we came up with quite a nice phrase. And she said, just because you're right doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Ooh,
Yeah, because it's
yeah,
like when you're having that sort of, doesn't even have to be a disagreement, but kind of just a debate or a conflict of viewpoints or something like that. It's just being able to see each other is probably feeling into different needs in that moment.
I love
And
that.
just because they need something doesn't mean you don't need something else, and equally valid.
That's right. That's
And
right.
it's super hard in that moment to find something of a shared need or I don't like the word compromise, but like somewhere where you both get your needs met somehow. I think she was describing her partner was doing shift work and he was coming home. He had half an hour he wanted to then go and have a sleep. She has ADHD. She was coming home from something else and she was like, well, if I don't go now, I'm never going to go. If I come in and sit down, it's that transition of task. I've got to go now. But he wanted her to come and sit and have a tea or,
Yeah,
and they did kind of fall out. So we were talking about how do you, if that happens, he needs you in your company. You need to get on task. How do you come to somewhere where you both understand each other's needs? So we came to the idea that perhaps they have a tea in the car.
oh,
So she's ready to go and doesn't come in, sit down, and he gets that small bit of company. So it's just,
I
but
love
if
it.
you don't acknowledge each other's needs, how will you ever know what solution is going to be the right one?
Exactly, because you can't know.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
can't know. It's I love that. I wrote that down. So just because you're right doesn't mean I am wrong. I love that. So this is my new post-it note, filling in my space with post-it notes. And the other was it's not compromise, like, because we've changed the meaning of compromise. We've, in our modern day, compromise means I'm giving something up, whereas what we're talking about is just really the platinum rule, I'm giving you what you need. I'm getting something out of it as well. And now we have this synergy where we're together, and so she still got to drive her car, take care of the responsibility, but then he had the tea and with her and the closeness, which is what they both need, actually.
Yeah, it's good
So
for both, isn't it? And
yeah,
both needs were good for each other because they both needed the shopping doing
yeah,
and they
yeah.
both could do with that time together. So it's kind of like a win-win
It
rather
is like a
than like
win-win.
compromise sounds like lose-lose.
It does, right? When you say it, oh, I'm going to compromise,
Yeah,
it's just like, ick, that's an
yeah.
icky. Yeah. So I did go to your website, and even though I know you are in the UK, you can coach people online in this
Yeah.
format all over the world. So this is really exciting to have you with us this morning, because that means anyone can reach out to you, and tell them how they do that. And I want to also make sure they know a little bit about a space for living. And so talk a little bit about that before we have to leave each other.
I know, this has been lovely. So the best place to find me is probably in my Facebook group.
Okay.
So it's completely free. I post every day. There's always kind of tips and questions to provoke thinking, things like that. I also do free clutter clinics every
Oh,
month. So we can, yeah, the time can be flexed each month. So they can be accessible for everyone. I do free one-to-one calls as well. So happy to to speak to anyone. Once you're in the group, you've got the option to sign up for the newsletter, which you'll find in there. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook as A Space for Living. It's also the name of the group.
Okay.
And then, as you said, there's the website, which is aspaceforliving.co.uk. You'll find lots of kind of free resources on there, as well as my email address, a way to kind of get in touch. So I'd love to hear from people.
Yeah, folks, I love the website, and it's, I printed it because I wanted to have it. And I love the way the bubbles, it's not you're going to love the website because it's not, I always say websites can get cluttered with a lot of information, but this website is easy to navigate, to go through. She can do all kinds of things for you in your life. Join the Facebook group. I got my phone here. I'm gonna do it after we hang up today. The free clutter clinics. This is really good for those of you. I was thinking about some of the young adults that I know that are moving back home or moving out of home. How do you do the decluttering before the move? So that you don't have to take all that stuff with you. Or if you're in my stage of life, how do you declutter all the stuff that you've collected? Or, and again, I've been given a lot of things in my life. People have given me a lot of gifts and different things. Well, some of them are still in the box in the garage. Some of them are somewhere else. Now, you have to let go of the fact that, oh, somebody gave this to me. And you've got to get to the place where you go, okay, but you know what? They gave it to me, and I'm going to pass it on to someone else who will love it probably more than me because it's still in the box. Right? So think about those things. And I know Susie talked about Etsy and eBay and all of that in the beginning of our time together. Those are great places to declutter. I'm not saying giving away precious things that have a deep and profound meaning to you. I'm not saying that. But I'm talking about how many mugs can you have? I'm just saying. You go to health fairs and everybody gives you a mug. But how many of them can you really have? I have to tell you, I use one mug in my house, even though I have 6 of the same looking mugs because they came with the plates and whatever. But I use one. It stays in the sink. I use it, wash it. I use one. I don't even use the others unless somebody comes to visit me. So look at your life and declutter. So look for her free clutter clinics. Her free one-to-one calls. I think that's a great place to start. If you need some coaching on some things, I've looked that up. Her newsletter, which once you sign up to the Facebook group and you will have access to, which I'm going to do. And then she's on Instagram, and then you can find her also on her website, and everything is under A Space for Living. So you can't miss her. You can't miss her. And don't use that she's across the pond as an excuse. We're talking right now.
Yep.
So, that's not a good excuse anymore. With the world, it's not a good excuse. Okay. And don't thrive on neglect. I'm going to leave that with you because Michelle Pope did that for many, many years. And every once in a while, I fall back into that pattern because it was something that I lived into for a very long time. Imposter syndrome, all of those things. Susie is a great coach who has some great skill sets, and she's lived into these things herself, just trying to figure it out when she lost a job or had to move on from a job, and or moving on to a different season in her life as a mom. So reach out to Susie. And did I pronounce your last name correctly when at the onset, Susie?
I say Boutal. But I think it's one of those names that,
Okay.
nothing's wrong.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I want to make sure. So Susie Boutal is this incredible human person that has found her niche, and her niche can benefit you as you look for the thing that gives you joy, gives you purpose. I put this up because I wanted you to see that I am doing new things in my life. I went on a meeting and they took us on a tie-dye field trip. But then we made stuff for somebody who I will never see that is living with cancer. So it was twofold. It was me doing something that gave my heart joy, getting to know my colleagues because they were all present, and then we made a tie-dye canvas bag for young adults living with cancer. Find stuff in your life that does all of those things for you, and I can't tell you how much I laughed. And I laughed, and as Susie said, my hormones, I was just feeling so good in that moment. And it was one of the best rests that I've ever had in a hotel space, because I don't like sleeping in hotels. So get out there in the world, do the things that make you feel good, and remember these things, because these are Susie's values, and I'm so proud to say I share them with her. Freedom. You have to have the freedom to do, the courage to do it, that sense of belonging, not only in your tribe, but in the belonging in yourself, that sense of integrity, that where you walk into the world, you're bringing your authentic self. And give Susie a call. She'll reach out to you. So Susie, one last statement for everybody out there, from your heart to the rest of the world. Share with us.
Well, something I say to all my clients is, whatever the state of your house, your clutter, your mind, your life, none of it is a moral issue. So whether your house is a mess, whether you're feeling rough, it's not a reflection of you and your self-worth. So although tidying is nice, it's nice to have a clear, clutter home and feel good, you can still feel valid and worthy, even if your place is a tip. So that's what I like to share.
Love that. I love that. And if you are a person out there that's feeling a lot of depression and anxiety right now, and the next thought that comes to your mind is taking your life, please get a hold of the suicide hotline. It's 988. I think they've expanded the title of the line, because it's not just about suicide any longer. They are talking to people living with extreme depression and anxiety. You are not alone. 988 is the number. Find a phone, find a text, get online, get the help that you need, so that you too know that you're not alone, and that there's people out there that will help you. All right, folks, we thank you so much for coming to Life is a Sacred Journey. Thanks, Susie, with me. Yay, thank you, Susie. And have a wonderful weekend. Go out and pet a cat, pet a dog, and hug a tree. I tell you, it will change your life. Hugging a tree is so amazing. Go do it. And hold on to the tree. Don't get embarrassed and let it go really fast. Hold on to the tree and hug it with all your might, and it will hug you back. And have a great weekend. And thank you for being patient with me this morning, because this whole thing fell apart with the Zoom. So thank you. All right, be well, everybody. Bye-bye.